Washington State just introduced a bill in the legislature, which is a huge first step.
Great.
It is.
Mm.
Someone wants to be anonymous. Okay.
Hello?
How are you, Helmut?
Who's there?
That's Walt Boyer.
Oh, hi,
Brenda
Walt. How are you?
Tremblay.
Good morning.
How are you, Joan? Glad to have you with us.
Thank you. Is this Walt?
Yes. Yes.
Good.
Let's see. Is Jim McLean on board?
He will
Yes,
sign in,
Walt.
he said.
He is on board.
Walt, this is Jim McLean.
Oh, hi, Jim. Helmut here.
Hi, Helmut.
Okay. So far, I've got Dick Clark, Helmut Gould, Joan Lewis.
Will Holton, Massachusetts.
Hello, it's Denise Davidoff from Connecticut.
Well, we've got a couple of anonymous people on board.
Can you speak up a bit, Walt? You're a little quiet.
Yeah, I will do that. Is this any better?
Yep, thank you.
Good.
Did you get Will Holton, Massachusetts?
No, I didn't. Yeah,
No, I said it, but I don't know where it went. I'm here.
Okay, good. So far I have Dick Clark, Denise Davidoff, Helmut Golding, Will Horton, Gerald Hyland, Joan Lewis, Brenda Tremblay, Jim McLean, and Jack Cumming. Is there anyone else here? Well, I think we have enough to start, so I'd like to start on the agenda, if I may. One of the first thing I wanted to cover was the time and date and frequency of this meeting. I was told initially that I shouldn't pick Fridays or Mondays. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday were okay. And but I haven't had a response from everybody. So I'm asking again, just to make sure. And if anyone has a comment about which day would be best for them, I'd appreciate their saying so now.
Any day except the second Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
I can do any day. This is Brenda.
Not the second Wednesday.
Right.
Okay. Anybody else have a problem?
Well, I can generally do any afternoon, and I'm in the Eastern time zone, so.
Okay.
It's Denny Davidoff. Afternoons are better for me also.
Okay. Is this, for those on the West Coast, is this 2 o'clock time means you're 11 o'clock your time? Is that bad for anybody?
Gerard Highland, no.
Good, thank you.
Jim, you have any problem with that time? Because I'll be stepping down, so I shouldn't speak up on that.
Well, I definitely have two notes here. Not the second Wednesday, and afternoons are much better, particularly for those in the East Coast. And so the next question is, how often do you want to get together? I had suggestions for every 2 months and for every 3 months. Does anyone have a strong preference? I will tell you that I'm being urged by Bob Nicholson to hold these at least every 2 months. So
That's fine with Virginia.
okay. Try to hold them bi-monthly, that is every 2 months. If there are no objections to anything that's been said so far, I will proceed to the next item. Okay, the next item on the agenda was reactions to the concept of joint collection of Washington State has a proposal, I don't know if they've actually approved it yet or not, which would make them an affiliate of NaCCRA itself. The dues would be collected for both the state and NaCCRA by partners in management as a part of that function. There are a number of discussions going on with the other states. Some are waiting to hear what Florida is going to do. They are having their board meeting on February the 18th, and the proposal to them is basically if they can get 100% of their people that are not life members, but are regular dues-paying members, to agree to this. They would collect $10 for NaCCRA rather than $20 and a half. It appears that, although none of this is final yet, it appears that that would include having memberships retained and managed by partners in management. But it would mean that those people would have to accept the newsletter, the Lifeline, by email rather than hard copy.
As I understand it, the issue is twofold. One is to increase the membership numbers of NaCCRA so that they are more effective in lobbying efforts.
That is correct.
That seems very clear to me. The second issue is that in order to do that, one would find a scheme so that the individual residents of a CCRC would become members rather in NaCCRA rather than members as part of their residence council membership. Is that correct?
Well,
Not quite.
No, not quite. We don't want to deny anyone an opportunity to be members of their own residence association.
Well, everybody's a member of a residence association by virtue of being a resident.
That's right.
I haven't made myself clear. Our residence council currently pays annual dues to both NaCCRA and to NaCCRA.
Correct.
And in doing that, our residents, through the Residence Council, are members of NaCCRA and NaCCRA. But you are looking for a way to make the 150 residents of Watermarket 3030 Park individual members. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I believe that, I'm not sure of this, but I believe that Connecticut is unique. Jack Cumming is on board, and perhaps he can correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe that Connecticut is unique in that it does not have a membership type dues organization, that it has an organizational dues type organization.
Excuse me, may I interrupt here for a second? Every CCRC resident in the state of Connecticut is a member of NaCCRA, but not necessarily of NaCCRA.
That is correct. Right now, but the people the residents in Connecticut do not individually pay dues to the state organization. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right.
Yes.
Nor do I think it would be. I think it would be a very difficult sell. Certainly here where I live.
Yeah, I know. I understand that.
And an even harder sell. And I come out of a marketing background. An even harder sell to interest them in individual membership in NaCCRA.
Why?
Because they don't give a damn.
Well, that's one good reason, but perhaps you can influence them.
Could I give some input from Virginia?
Let's get everybody to understand Connecticut first, because they Connecticut is a state in which are members of the state organization, but they do not pay dues. Their association pays the dues, and currently each state pays dues to NaCCRA, which makes the state a member of NaCCRA, but doesn't necessarily make the residents of that state members of NaCCRA. The idea behind this, one of the things that is being considered is that if a state would accept this joint arrangement, then the state dues would be eliminated. All of this is still very much open, subject to a lot of discussion that's going on, but I wanted you to be aware of it. I wanted you to get some comments on that. I do agree it'll be a very difficult problem for Connecticut. It may be a difficult problem for other states, which is why I added agenda item 4, comments on my white paper, and I'll discuss that when we get to it. But for now, is it clear that Connecticut has a special problem?
Walt, this is Jack. I might just provide some nuance. There are many variations. Pennsylvania is similar to Connecticut. New Jersey is an association of resident associations. So it's a widespread element, and it's going to take time. There's no pressure to make the move. There are some advantages from considering it. So at this point, it's just something for people in Connecticut and states like that to consider. There's no pressure to change. There is a question whether you have greater strength and advocacy if you know the individuals who are the members. If you have a list of them. In Connecticut, what they have is an association of resident associations. And so, but it's also a different state. In Connecticut, people can drive at their own expense to the state capital. That doesn't work well in, say, Alaska or Texas or California or many other states. So it's an evolving thing, and that's why we need to look at it state by state with particular needs of each state without any state being under particular pressure. It's merely an opportunity for people to consider.
Okay.
This is Helmut speaking here for a moment. I just want to let everybody know what the situation in Washington State is. There is a draft agreement along the lines earlier mentioned that the partners collect the dues, retain $10 for NaCCRA, and the rest comes back to Washington State, giving up the paper copy of Lifeline as a quid pro quo in a way. This agreement has been signed off by the Executive Committee of NaCCRA Washington. It will, as my understanding, on the 3rd of February be presented to the NaCCRA board for discussion and possible adoption. Jack, is that correct, what I just said?
Yes, I'm sorry, I had my phone muted.
No, Helmut, that is correct. It's on the agenda for February the 3rd.
Yeah. So that's where we are.
Yeah, well,
Washington State.
Washington State was special in that they were a startup, and so it was more urgent that we address that. So this is an evolving thing, and it's going to take time for people to get their heads around it. And yes, there are marketing challenges, and no, it will not change the way the state association has to operate unless they choose to change their structure.
Right, okay. Let me shift just a moment and ask Joan Lewis if she could talk to Virginia.
Okay, at this time, Virginia can't support the combined membership. And I think I'd like to talk just a bit about the organization. We have a plus and minus situation in Virginia. On the plus side, we are developing a collegial relationship with our management organization, Leading Age Virginia. We have adopted a 10-point residents' rights bill. We've adopted our first set of goals with short-term goals to begin the implementation process. We've done a lot to reduce costs. We have 2 communities who are interested in joining, but that's a long process. On the minus side, membership. 3 years ago, 40 of our members at Westminster, Canterbury, Chesapeake Bay joined NaCCRA instead of BACRA. We have not gotten those members back. And Green Spring Village has just gone inactive for 2016. So we add those 2 sets of members together, and we have 110 members for the rest of us to overcome this year. And we are working to increase membership by 10%. So I feel that I can ask our communities to better advertise NaCCRA and encourage their members to join. But at this point, through this year, I don't think we can support combined membership. We will talk about it at the March annual meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that what you're saying is that you don't think it will happen this year, but it's possible it could happen at some point in the future.
Exactly. So it's nice to know there's no pressure.
You know, some people think we're talking 5 to 10 years to
Good. Right. I think it's more of a long-term thing. While we can work short-term among our communities to increase individual NaCCRA memberships.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I could report on Massachusetts if you'd like.
Yes, please do.
This is Will. We were paying an annual membership for the organization NaCCRA to NaCCRA. But then I believe 2 years ago, maybe 3, our treasurer had some questions for the board, and they were not answered as I understood it by NaCCRA, and we have not been getting any notice of new dues from NaCCRA for the last several years, so we haven't been paying them. Our situation is that we have individual membership now. We've made the transition from association memberships. We have our membership up to about 700 per year. We had a meeting this week of the board, and the general feeling was that we could not stand adding another $10 to our fee. We now have 15. Might not seem like much, but people, even though they have some money, don't want to part with it. We're Yankees up here.
Okay, so you're not ready to change it?
Not yet. We could put out questions to our members and see whether they would be willing. Very few in most of our communities are now NaCCRA members individually. Mm-hmm. And most don't know about NaCCRA.
Okay. Is any other state care to make a comment? Well, I appreciate very much your comments. I think I will get back to this when we get to item 4 on the agenda. But if there are no more comments, I'll shift to item 3 on the agenda. Just has to, as a notification that President Bob Nicholson is looking for people to head committees, and specifically, there are 3 committees which she's interested in finding somebody. The first one is the Financial Soundness Committee, which initially, a few years ago, developed the model laws, which are currently with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, in which we hope we may be able to get through them at some point. I should compliment Jack Cumming, because he's the one who really drafted those, although I was the chair at the of that committee at the time. Jack really did all the hard work. And I think they're very good model laws. You may want to look up, they're on the website if you want to look at them. That committee, the Financial Soundness Committee, is currently trying to find some model which it can, to resonance as an appropriate way to evaluate the financial health of a CCRC. And we would probably like to have either an actuary or an accountant be the head of that committee, although that's not a firm requirement, but they need to be willing to work in that general area. The second one is Resident Bill of Rights Committee, and many of you have been familiar, I think, with the Bill of Rights models that have been in various states. What we would like to have is a sort of a standard that states can use as a model, and they can add to or detract, and then go to their legislatures and try to get bills passed in their legislature to provide them with those rights. And we'd like somebody to chair the committee that's responsible for putting all that together and getting the ideas from all the various states together in one document. Third one is something we have talked about for some time but not done an awful lot. That is to have a consumer guide that NaCCRA could endorse. I know several states already do have consumer guides. I believe California has one. I know that New Jersey has one. We don't have one in Virginia, but I'm ambitious that we can perhaps get one in Virginia. There have been 3 or 4 residents of CCRCs who have written books on the subject, and I'm trying to accumulate those as well as a possibility. But we're looking for someone to chair that committee and possibly for people to be on it. Those we feel that my going to you all, that you may have people or states who are interested in those topics and willing to work with NaCCRA on a committee to try to put something together that's worthwhile. And if you do have someone in your state that is willing to do that, we would appreciate very much your nominating them for that purpose.
When do you need those names?
I would say I would like to have them within 60 days. But until we get those committees set up again, some of them that were in existence, they are currently in limbo. We want to reactivate them, and so I can accept nominations after that, but it would be helpful if we could get them within 60 days.
Thanks.
The one new thing on there is this Vice President for Advocacy. The Board of Directors hasn't approved this yet, but I thought I'd bring it up to you. I do believe that the President, Bob Nicholson, has in mind trying to find someone who can keep track of all the things that are going on within NaCCRA, all the advocacy programs we've got going, and try to act as a coordinator between them and someone to keep them on track, provide the necessary liaison back and forth between them and with the board of directors. That is a position that doesn't exist at the moment, and I can't say that it will exist, but it's one that Bob Nicholson has got in the back of his mind. So I brought that up too. If you have anybody that you think might be good at that, have been a lobbyist at one time or another, that could perform that function, we'd appreciate their nomination as well. Are there any questions about what I've said here?
Well, it's Helmut here. I have another question, which is not one of your 4 points.
Yes.
But Bob Nicholson used to be a vice president for membership. Now he is president. Is there going to be a new vice president for membership in NaCCRA?
I would like to see one, but Bob has not put that up yet.
So it's up to Bob to suggest that?
I think it is, yeah.
Okay,
If it's in the bylaws, then it's not up to him, is it?
Can you clarify that?
If the bylaws call for that PP, then it seems like you need to try to get someone to fill it.
Yeah. But I believe the new bylaws do not call for it. Maybe the existing ones do. Can you clarify that, Jack?
Yeah, the existing bylaws are not the greatest, to be brutally frank. They were put together in a meeting of the board, and they were sort of eviscerated. So there's this particular issue is one of the ones that was not well handled, and so we're working on bylaws. The new bylaws would have specific authority for officers like these, and I think we could go ahead and sort of do it on an ad hoc basis while we're working through this bylaws to get that right this time. But generally, the president names officers subject to the approval by the board. That doesn't mean that the board couldn't initiate something or direct the president to do something, but you generally look to the president to name the appointed officers. We do have, there are specific elected officers. The president, right now it's president, president-elect, treasurer, and secretary. The proposal, as it stands most recently, would have a president, vice president, like a major vice president, secretary and treasurer, and then there'd be functional vice presidents who would be appointed generally by the president.
Currently, in your bylaws, can they be approved just by the board, or are they approved first by the board and then by the general membership?
The bringing the general membership in has been very problematic, and so you're raising a very question that we just don't have our hands around, our arms around at this time. What has happened is that the general membership meetings were generally held in the CCRC, and most of the people attending were from that CCRC, yes. So it reflected the local culture rather than being for the whole membership. So we tried involving the whole membership through electronic means, having an electronic voting process, and frankly, nobody really voted. They didn't care. And now, my guess is that if there's an issue that really gets people excited, then they come out and vote. But most of the time, they just soon have somebody else figuring out all these complicated things. So that's an area that we've got to work out. We want to be sure that we're reflective of the membership and that we're responsive to the whole membership. But you can't allow a single CCRC to hijack the process either, because they might have a mindset that's a little different from what would be the norm across the country. So you're raising a very good issue. It's a tough one, particularly for our age demographic. You know, apathy, a lot of people have challenges and they just don't have the energy to involve themselves in all this stuff.
Right.
This is Denny Davidoff. I just want to comment. You just gave a exposition of why it would be so difficult to collect local dues, individual dues.
Could you state the question again? I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand.
To ask the question, I made a statement. The narrative that I just heard is a brilliant exposition of why it would be so difficult to collect individual members' dues for NaCCRA, for all the reasons just stated.
We understand that, and that's why we're trying to we're not, you know, it has to be volitional. It has to, you know, this is not some group going to the mountaintop and coming back with the rules. So it's a long-term process that's evolving. And you can listen to the Dues and Membership Committee, which has been where most of the most recent discussion has been, and the most recent meeting, which I guess was Monday, if I recall correctly, was very interesting for that particular issue. But it's a tough one. There's no clear.
The conversation. I just wanted to make an observation.
Yeah. Thank you. Is there any more comment about these four positions? And I would agree with you that we need a vice president for membership, but right now it hasn't been suggested by Bob, and he is currently traveling around the country still doing that himself.
He's good at it.
But anyway.
Question about that. Is there going to be a major push in the newsletter for nominations for these? That's the way to get to the most people the fastest.
I certainly am going to recommend that to him. Yes. I can't promise it, but I'm going to strongly suggest it, and I figure that's a good point for me to take up at the board meeting. So I will take it up at the board meeting.
Good.
Walton, this is Gerard, Highland, Oregon.
Yes.
I am the outgoing chair of the NaCCRA Financial Soundness Committee. I resigned, and Ruth Walsh asked that I remain on the committee to maintain continuity. I am willing to speak further on the subject of the Soundness Committee or on the FASB, which is on your white paper that you will get to. I leave that to you or anybody else that would like to call me and speak about it.
Yeah, I think, Gerard, if you could say a few words now, it would be helpful.
Well, on the financial assessment tool, I pretty well much concluded that the measure would be profitability, or since we're talking about not-for-profits, it would be revenues in excess of expenses or surplus, and you would get that information from the readily available IRS Form 990s, which is the annual report that not-for-profits must file. And it shows that one because in accounting terms, businesses are ongoing, and to have an ongoing business, you must have a profit, So you have money in excess of depreciation expense to replace your assets, your buildings, your equipment. In the case of CCRCs, the issue is confused because CCRCs, as well as other businesses, not necessarily not-for-profit, use the issue by other sources of funds. For example, Amtrak doesn't have to worry about profits because the federal government keeps funding it. We have a lot of would-be wine growers in Oregon who are very wealthy in their own right, think they can grow a better wine, and so they can keep trying and go through billions of dollars. The IRS will eventually say this is becoming a hobby, and after 3 years you can no longer deduct your losses from your personal income. In the case of CCRCs, you have residents that are willing to provide entry fees and provides a tremendous amount of funds, so you don't necessarily have to make a profit, you can continue to operate. But the measure of an ongoing business is profitability, and you need a profit if you're going to stay in business. I don't think that's going to be a widely accepted measure. But in any event, that was the conclusion I came from our efforts in this subject.
Who would not?
Go ahead.
Who would not accept that measure of the management?
I think, well, both management and residents. I mean, there are CCRCs that have been losing large sums of money year after year. And so if you were to say then, well, that falls way down on the ranking, residents are going to get upset for saying, hey, you're saying that our place isn't an ongoing business, isn't well run, isn't financially sound. The bondholders are happy. Well, the bondholders are happy, of course, because the residents keep throwing all these funds at the CCRC, the entry fees. And management wouldn't be happy for you to rank a CCRC poorly. So I don't think either management, leading age, or residents are going to be happy with such a measure. I think it's fine in theory to say you're going to do that, but when you get around to applying it, and one of the things the committee did, or I did, was to apply the measure to a variety of CCRCs, and residents that were at CCRCs where the results were poor were not happy. These are residents that were on the committee. In my correspondence with the committee, I kept it confidential because didn't want such information to get out.
But why? I can see them being unhappy, but they should be afraid that the place is going under, if that's the case.
Yes, they should. And in fact, if you're familiar with the situation in Connecticut, they passed recent laws on CCRCs, and it was driven by a CCRC that expanded and was now in financial difficulty, and the residents were unaware of it. So, if things get bad enough, residents might like to know about it, but generally speaking, I think residents will be unhappy about knowing that their CCRC ranks poorly. So it seemed to me to be kind of a losing proposition, and I sensed that the NaCCRA Board of Directors wasn't particularly interested in the subject at this time, given the reorganization and bylaws, so on.
This Wald again. I will have to say that I fully agree with what Gerard has been saying. I'm a part of our local resident finance committee, and they've been taking questions from residents here locally one of them was, how do you know that our CCRC is financially sound? My answer was basically the same. The best answer you can find to that question is in a full-up actuarial analysis of the CCRC, and that would include demographics and projections into the future and so on. Those probably less than 1% of the CCRCs in the country have such a study that's valid, that has been performed within the last 5 years. So probably the next best thing is looking at the 990 forms, IRS Form 990s, or if your CCRC does a disclosure statement or has financial statements that they release. Again, revenues over expenses and showing a profitability. The thing people don't think about too much is the fact that there's a lot of maintenance that goes on in a CCRC that is aperiodic, that doesn't happen every year. And you need to put money aside for those kinds of things on a regular basis if you're going to stay in good condition. And for that, your year-to-year income has to show level of profitability. It doesn't have to be terribly large, but it does need to be there. And if you're going to be successful. And so that's what you look for. Some other things that don't really relate that closely are things like financial rating from Standard & Poor's or one of the other rating organizations, or using the CCAC accreditation, which only about 5% of CCRCs do. That's an indicator, but isn't really necessarily establish a valid financial status. And I would add that you should not necessarily look at just 1 year if you're going to look at revenues over income, that is over expenses. That occasionally a CCRC will have a large maintenance item which will essentially end up with they're having a deficit for 1 year. And so you need to look at 4 or 5 years, make sure that they're pretty regular with a profit, but they don't have to have a profit every single year.
Walton, I agree with that you need to look at it over several years, and it also trends are important because a new CCRC can be expected to operate at a loss for the first few years, but they should be able to start showing a profit after 2 or 3 years.
Absolutely. Correct.
Also, you need this surplus in case of unexpected expenses. Fraser Meadows had a flood which costed extraordinary expense of $7 million to recover from. Fortunately, they're in a good, strong financial position and could easily handle $7 million.
Yep.
Walt, this is Jack. I have a relevant announcement that just came in. By way of background, NaCCRA 5 years ago met with Leading Age to try to talk about getting standards for sound financial operation, even though nonprofits were forced to sort of try to do a bootstrap. As Gerard just said, they're trying to use the entry fees as the equity capital, so they often go in the hole initially, and we've had trouble getting Leading Age's attention for that. But recently, we've been forming a joint task force. And from NaCCRA, the membership of that task force is to be Bob Nicholson, Walt Boyer, me, and who's the fourth person? Walt.
I can't remember.
I can't either. But anyway, there are 4 of us. And I just got an email from Katie Sloan, who's the CEO of Leading Age. They've appointed their committee, and it's a very strong committee. Roberta Jacobson, who's the president of a very large multifunction provider organization. Terry Cunliffe of Covenant Retirement Communities, a very strong Lutheran group. Sean Kelly from Kendall Corporation. I think many of you know Kendall Corporation. And Tom Akins from Leading Age North Carolina. So I think we're going to have a truly strong group to meet together, and hopefully we can begin to get some common understanding of these issues and how to address the challenges that the industry faces so that CCRC living can be viewed as a trustworthy way to provide responsibility for the challenges of aging into the future. I'm very excited by this. I just got that 10 minutes ago.
Well, that's great news, Jack. I have to say, great news. If I can go on to the 4th item, unless there are more comments about these 4 positions, I'd like to go on to the 4th item, which was the white paper that I included with my last email to you all. I don't know how many of you have had a chance to read it or look at it, but it concerns this membership between NaCCRA and the state. And my impression, just off the top of my head, and I've talked to Brenda about this, we both feel that there's probably no better than a 50-50 chance we're going to get it approved within North Carolina this year. I wrote the white paper, I'm still writing it actually, it's just a draft, with the idea that I would put it in a local, in our state newsletter production before our board meeting, which will be in either May or June this year. And I plan several articles actually trying to alert people to what's going on and why it's important that we have a large membership in NaCCRA. I want to ask each of you to look at it and with that in mind, provide me with comments. You're welcome to use any of it you feel is appropriate for your own state if you want to proceed with your own state. And I will keep you informed of the other articles as I put them together. But any comments that you have, I would welcome very much because I want it to be right.
Walton, this is the white paper on NaCCRA that's got your name at the end of it?
That's correct.
Okay. I have 2 comments on it. One with regard to the Federal Accounting Standards Board. They have issued an accounting standard update on revenue recognition that may be very important to the CCRC industry, not-for-profit CCRC industry. And the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants are currently putting together how it should be implemented. And they will then put their recommendations out in draft form for 30, 60-day comment period. But that's in the works right now. And it's important. I think you should have a CPA, find a CPA from among the members to address that. The other item,
where do you find the draft?
Oh, I can send it to you if you want. Well, I can send you the revenue recognition accounting standards update. That's final. It's about 600 pages. I can send it to you. I can send you a couple of summaries.
No, just send the link or something.
Okay. Well, I don't know where the link is now, but maybe I can find it.
600 pages.
American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, they are working on implementation of it for the not-for-profit industry. They, as far as I know, they have yet to issue their recommendations on implementation. But one of the things that it may deal with, for example, is that the entry fee is a loan and may clearly state it as such. The second comment I have is you didn't mention in your list the municipal standard, the Municipal Research Accounting Board. Do I have that right? Municipal Securities Research Board.
No, I didn't.
That regulates disclosure relating to municipal bonds, and CCRCs do much of their financing through municipal bonds. Well, do much of their financing after entry fees. Entry fees is usually the most significant financing. They regulate the disclosure relating to municipal bonds, and they are forever seeking additional comments on improving disclosure. It would seem to me that for a little bit of effort, you might encourage them. One of the problems with disclosure is that in private placement of municipal bonds, the issuer does not have to disclose publicly information. And many CCRCs have been going to private placement of municipal bonds. Would like to extend the disclosure requirements to private placement of bonds. But there's a tremendous amount of information that's issued very promptly. I believe they have to issue within 45 days of the end of a
I would say 10 minutes.
so you might add that to your list.
I think all of that's very pertinent. Could you summarize that for me in an email so that I have it, make sure I got it correctly?
Yes, I can do that.
I appreciate it very much. That is very pertinent. And I will get one of our local CPAs to look at that. The summary of the FASB new regulation, I think several of us will be interested in that. Could you send that to the same distribution on an email that I sent for the agenda for today?
Yes, I can do that.
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, very helpful.
Anyone else have a comment on the white paper?
Well, I have a question, Walt. Tell me, what's the purpose of the white paper? What's
my purpose?
What's the intended audience?
Yeah, my purpose was strictly for people in North Carolina because I felt that I would get some opposition in North Carolina and trying to work for bringing the subject up at a board meeting in May or June here in North Carolina. However, I also thought it could be helpful to some of the other states, and perhaps inputs from other states might be useful here in North Carolina as well. So that's why I'm sending it to you all to get your reaction to it and your comments. You're welcome to use it, any parts of it that you want. I'm still working on it. I probably will either add sections discussing some of the projects that NaCCRA has entertained through the years and what the status is. I may do that in a separate article. I'm not sure yet. But those are the things that are going through my mind. And I think anything you might have to say would be helpful to me and would be helpful to the other around the country as well.
Okay.
So if anything you have to say, I'd appreciate any comments you have on it.
Actually, Walt, it's Brenda. I think one of the things that I'm sensing in North Carolina is this officer visit. They really want us to shake hands and present ourselves and present our concerns, and that's kind of one of the ways I'm leaning. I've been invited to attend some of the meetings, and I find that they're very beneficial mutually for them and for me to get to know the people that are representing them.
If I can, I will try to accompany you.
Great.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Okay, any new business that anyone wants to bring up? Any business you'd like to cover at our next meeting? Well, I would like to set, subject to change if I get enough input from you, is on March the 30th at 2 p.m. we'll have our next teleconference. Anything more anyone wants to bring up before we adjourn?
Yeah, there was reference, this is Denny Davidoff, there was reference in some email I received to a meeting in Washington, and I did not understand the acronym. Dick Clark, remember I asked you about that and you didn't know about that?
Yeah, it's the Leading Age meeting in Washington.
Oh, I see.
Oh, okay. Let me look at my calendar. Let me see. I
think we meet March 12th for the board, if that's a Saturday.
It's the 12th, 13th, 14th. That's that weekend, right?
Well, the NaCCRA board meets on the 12th, and then there's a NaCCRA program on the 13th. Not sure that Bob Nicholson's set that all out yet. And then the rest of it, Leading Age arranges meetings with your congressional delegation. So if you're there, I think it's scheduled on Tuesday, you get to meet or congressman or whatever, probably just staff. But those who've attended, I have not. So this will be my first year. I do plan to go. But those who've attended in the past felt it was a positive experience. On the other hand, you got to go to Washington to do it.
Yeah.
Walton, this is Gerard Highland again. When I try to recruit members for NaCCRA, I'm asked, well, what is NaCCRA doing for members? And we have of course, the NaCCRA Lifeline, but it can be difficult to identify accomplishments that NaCCRA has achieved on behalf of members. And so I would, and in fact, in the 6 years or so that I've been involved with NaCCRA, it seems that the Board of Directors have been continually involved with bylaw changes and membership issues and fundraising so I think I would encourage you with your white paper to try to have to act on your recommendations.
Gerard, if I may, this is Jack, I'll mention three things that we've done. One is that people who had refundable entry fees used to be taxed on imputed interest. NaCCRA was instrumental in getting that tax removed. Number two, people who were enrolled in managed care health plans were often shunted to a low-cost care center, not permitted to return to in their own CCRC. We got congressional legislation so that now if a person who lives in a CCRC goes to the hospital and has to go to a nursing facility afterwards, they're allowed to go to the facility in their own CCRC. That was not previously the case. And finally, we've now established this joint task force with Leading Age where we're going to have providers and residents coming together to address some of these issues. The big pushback that we've always had in the past is that you're wealthy people, you're affluent, and you have say-so. Why do you want us to legislate something because you made a bad deal, go work it out with your providers. If you come to us together, we'll support it, but we're not going to just rectify the relations that you are unable to form with your own providers. Now we're doing that. We're on the march. We're doing an awful lot. There's a great deal that can be accomplished at the national level. You've mentioned the accounting. That's a direct result of NaCCRA's backdoor conversations with FASB, some of which are so confidential that you may not be completely aware of them. We're doing an awful lot, and I think we have a great deal to be proud of, and we need all the support we can get so we can do much more.
This is Joan from Virginia. I think it's a very good idea to include that information. What has NaCCRA done for us? Because that's always the question we get at VACRA.
Okay, we will try to put that together in either as a part of the white paper, as a separate white paper.
Great.
Okay. Any other suggestions? That was a good one. Okay. And unless someone has...
Hey, everybody, this is Denny Davidoff ringing off.
Meeting... Well, Jack, what do you think?
Well, I think I suggest you adjourn.
We are adjourning. I just was curious. I think it was a pretty good meeting, but I wanted to get your reaction.
Walter Clark, I thought that was a very good meeting.
Well,
Very helpful to get a variety of input and understand NaCCRA better.
Okay, good. I hope it helps everybody.
Forward to March 30th.